All right. So, are we ready to jump into the Imitation of Christ? We're in my book. We are in the chapter called chapter 13, called resisting temptation. And this temptation is an interesting thing. You know, in the Christian paradigm, they've personified ego, or they've personified evil, and made him a demon, a character. And his job, for unexplained reasons, really, is to go around and tempt all of us, and to get us to, do selfish things. And we've mentioned before, in the Vedanta scheme, we're dealing with the same issues. We're looking at the same truth, but Vedantins have chosen quite a different way of doing it. In the Vedanta, there is no inherent evil. There is none such thing as something that is purely evil, because evil really is just seen as a shadow. It's sort of seen as ignorance, and not a thing in and of itself. So they haven't personified it. Some could say Mara or Maya are personifications, but not really. And so, with this demon going around and attacking all of us, trying to get us to, I don't know exactly what, trying to get us to go to hell with him, or just to hurt God. I don't really know what he's up to with that in that regard. But for Vedantins, we have the same paradigm, but it's egoism. Your confusion with being a body mind is what causes you to be selfish, is what causes you to look for your vices. Because anything that runs into that multiplicity, meaning anything that runs toward people believing themselves to be material, believing themselves to be body mind, has the same product as sinners who are obeying Satan, because really a sinner obeying Satan is the same as a Vedantin obeying his ego or her ego. And so, kind of as he's talking about this temptation and whatnot, just kind of keep that equation in your mind, because the problem with Satan in my mind is, well, it gives evil a reality, an inherent reality. And if you give it an inherent reality, you've now got a dual. You've got two gods. You've got a god of evil and you've got a god of good, because they've personified it and made it a thing separate and apart from goodness. And so that requires a source. And so they've sourced it in this character, but really unnecessarily, because there's a little bit of a cheat going on, because Satan still has to get permission from God to tempt you. We see that in the book of Job, that Satan meets with God, and God is bragging about his great devotee, Job, and how upright he is and what a great man. And Satan says, "Oh yeah, well, you've given him everything. He's rich. He's got a beautiful family. He's got a huge ranch. You've just taken such nice care of him. I bet if you didn't do that, he wouldn't like you." And so God says, "No, he's a great guy. Test him. Go ahead. I give you permission. You can do anything but kill him." So nothing like having a friend like that, right? Thanks, God. Literally sicking the demons on me. But Satan's not allowed to do anything, and he can only operate up to the limit that God has given him. And so, really, even though they've sourced evil in Satan, and characterized evil, they still make God responsible for that evil, which is very interesting, because the reason they separated it out into a Satan is that you couldn't have a God be responsible for evil, for doing evil. And yet there we have it. But the bottom line is that when we're reading these scriptures, to understand them more closely and to benefit from them, understand that when they talk about Satan, they're talking about egoism in this paradigm, the Vedanta paradigm, and you'll get the same meaning. You'll get a deeper meaning. So we're at the top paragraph on page 32, and our writer is saying, "Many try to fly away from temptations, only to fall more deeply into them. For you cannot win a battle by mere flight. It is only by patience and humility that you will be strengthened against the enemy. Now, see, they also have that paradigm, this battle going on, and actually in the Bhagavad Gita, we also have that battle going on, but you see that it's kind of a different oriented battle. It's a battle against our attachments and wrongdoers, injustice. But life is a battlefield. However, the Vedantic way of fighting, we don't really go to battle with our vices. We really try to transcend them through knowing our nature, by knowing ourselves to be the image of the beloved, of the divine, and understanding that these desires are due to ignorance, just not knowing better. They're not actually a will for evil's sake. They're an ignorance of what we are, and we're serving ourselves as a body mind. And he's saying you can't run away from this. You can't just go in your house and remove anything that's a temptation to you, because things don't work like that. They will creep in, they will find you. If you believe yourself to be body mind, you're going to act on that, regardless of what you've got tucked around your house. And so you can't run from it. You can't win a battle by mere flight. It is only by patience and humility that you will be strengthened against the enemy. Now, interestingly enough, a humility is ego reduction. And that's exactly right. Through reducing the ego, through knowing the ego is what happens when the self identifies with the particular, with body and mind, that produces ego. And so when he says through humility, these things are being won, he's saying that through the understanding of yourself not being body mind, which reduces the ego, that's the means of overcoming this tendency towards wrongdoing. So through patience, because it takes some time, because we've got habits. Again, it's not hard to do good things. It's hard to break our habits of doing bad things, or doing things that are counter to our nature, counter to Satchitananda, to love and wisdom. And so it's only by the patience and humility that you will be strengthened against the enemy. And he's talking in third party about your strength, which is a wonderful thing, because all strength comes through God, through the divine, through your true nature. And so by patience, meaning keeping your axe to the grinder, as it were, keeping your efforts in transcendence alive, and with humility, through reducing your ego, you will be strengthened, because you'll become more aware of your divine nature and less inclined to run after things that are counter to your nature. Those who only shun them outwardly and do not pull them out by the roots will make no progress. This is why Sri Ramakrishna says that sincerity and earnestness are two of the most important characteristics of a spiritual seeker. For this reason, if you're not full-heartedly on board with realizing your nature, it's going to take you quite some time, because it takes a lot of tenacity. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of faith to keep going through all these years. Depending on people, I know for me, I was quite ignorant. I really delighted in my ignorance in different parts of my life, and picked up a million bad habits that followed me for many, many, many years, and has taken a lot of tenacity to get through them, to fight them. And some of them still rear their ugly heads every now and then. But it's a constant exercise in faith, in believing in grace, believing that grace is enough, and in experience. Having an inner experience of the presence of God within you is very important. It lets you know that these things are true. It gives you that evidence that the mind wants so badly, that you're not just pretending all of these things. And so through our practice, we touch that bliss. We touch that oasis, that peace within, through silence of mind, through not identifying with body-mind, reminding ourselves that our identity is not body or mind, and sorting out what's coming from body and what's coming from mind, and to renounce them, to discern and renounce. And so he says you won't make any progress if you're not serious about it. if you don't rip these things out by the roots, if you I don't know, if you decide you're not going to eat any cake, but you keep a cake around the house, that's not sincere. If you're trying to lose weight and you buy a bunch of potato chips and keep them in the pantry, probably not real sincere. So what you're doing, you have to pull these things out by the roots. You have to be serious about it. Go after the very causes of the desire, which is ignorance. And so you've got to find your ignorance. You've got to identify your ignorance, which is hard because ignorance means you don't know about it. So you have to do a lot of discerning inside. You have to look in and say, well, why is my mind or body running for anything outside of itself? There's nothing outside of the self that can satisfy us. There's nothing out there that can give us what we need, that will give us the contentment that we long for. So those who do not pull them out by the roots will make no progress, for temptations will soon return to harass them, and they will be in a worse state, right? A worse state because you knew better and you did it anyway. That's a worse state because it's more difficult for you to be able to trust grace when you know you're not doing your best, when you know that you're making a half-hearted effort. So that puts you in a more dangerous state. And it gets worse and worse. The more and more you do it, the less and less seriously you take it, and the more casual you become around it, and it starts to color your mind. It starts to color the way you see the world. So the world will start looking like your vice. If you get really lusty and you feed that temptation, you feed that desire, then pretty soon the entire world looks to you as if it's about sex. Whole world starts looking like that. Every person you pass, you look at them and decide, are they beautiful or handsome, or are they not? Lust is one of the ones. Lust and greed are the root of this entire manifested world. Just lust alone is what makes you judge people as beautiful or ugly, as male or female, as strong or weak, as fat or thin, as rich or poor. All of those things, all of those qualities are sexually motivated. And you see, if you don't weed that out of your mind, the world will become that for you. And when you see the world in that way, and you actually identify it as being that way in its own self, you give it an attribute, that you project your attribute on it. To try and overcome at that point is extremely difficult, really difficult. And so it's quite serious. It is only gradually, and again, he mentions with patience and endurance. So know that this is a long fight. If you've been fighting a long time and you feel frustrated because you can't get anywhere, you're not alone. You're not alone. But know that that's not how you're judged, right? You're judged through grace. And so we continue to take refuge in that. And that's why this wonderful practice I was sharing about just sitting in quietness, accepting the fact that there's nothing to be done, just sit in the presence of God. And that will bring about the change that you seek. Because slowly, you become aware of your nature. So it's only gradually with patience and endurance and with God's grace. God's grace should have been first and foremost, really, in all caps. We have to know, we have to sit in the faith is all about accepting grace. That's really the key measure of your faith is, can you accept God's grace as being enough for you in a real way, so that it inspires you to keep working, to keep going, and to keep trying, knowing that you don't have to sit with your failure. Are you willing to let go of your failures in the face of the divine? It's a very important part of our practice. It's really the battery that drives us onward. So it's only gradually with patience, endurance, and God's grace that you will overcome temptation sooner than by your own efforts and anxieties. Your own efforts, when you confront these things head on, it doesn't normally go very well. When you try to repress these things, they usually begin expressing in weird ways. I call them spiritual hernias. It's when you start trying to control something that you haven't yet detached from, or you haven't discerned the true nature of, so you don't have the tools necessary to get yourself to let go of it, and you start repressing it. It's going to manifest in weird ways, weird ideas, weird fetishes, weird desires, uncontrollable desires, compulsions will come out of that kind of behavior. So that's why Thakur does not want us thinking about sin. He doesn't want us identifying ourselves as sinners. Anytime you're confronted with wrongdoing or weakness, you should meet it with a retort. What? I'm a devotee of the divine. How can I possibly be a sinner? How can I be weak? How can I not win this? How can I be lost in ignorance? No, no, no. I'm ever free. I'm ever pure. I am loved of God. I've dedicated my life to this. No, 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 no. I'm not a sinner. Yes, there's plenty of evidence against me, but grace has got that completely erased. I do not live, by anything but grace. When you are tempted, seek the advice of a wise counselor. And do not yourself be harsh with persons who are tempted. Right. Don't get judgmental. Don't get churchy toward people. Don't be the church lady on Saturday Night Live. Could it be Satan? Just running around judging folks. And, I grew up in church, and this is a struggle for a lot of people. To make it their gossip hour on who's going to make it to heaven or not. So do not be harsh with people who are tempted. Rather, be happy to console them, to show them compassion, to share your own grace with them. You be gracious toward them. You don't hold their faults against them. That is how you manifest the divine nature that you are, through this compassion, through this non-judgment, through this encouragement, through this thinking positively, through insisting on respecting someone until they absolutely drive you to disrespect, but you don't let go lightly. He says, so do not be harsh with people who are tempted. Rather, be happy to console them as you would wish to be consoled. Right? The beginning of all evil temptations is inconstancy of mind and insufficient trust in God. All right? So the root and beginning of all evil temptations is, one, forgetting the divine, forgetting your divine nature, and being firmly planted in the world of the material world as a body mind. That's the root of all evil. So the beginning of all evil temptations is inconstancy of mind. That's not being established in your identity. I'm a child of God. I am a manifesting image of the beloved. I'm not this body. I'm not this mind. And you know that to be true. And when these temptations come up, instead of just being, boom, nope, not interested. It's that whole voices in the mind thing, right? If you start attaching to thoughts, they become sentient, sharing your sentience and using it against you, and they become opposing voices in your mind. And I use getting up in the morning as a good one, because boy, that's where a lot of arguments happen. That alarm goes off, and there's a good part of you which is like, yeah, let's get up and get going. And then there's another part that's like, no, we could do 5 more minutes. Just 5 minutes won't be a problem. See, and you say, oh, wait, there's an opposing voice. Where is that coming from? Who wants to lay in bed 5 minutes more? Oh, that would be the body. Okay, so the body's putting forward a message here. Am I going to serve it or not? Well, no. And so it's better to not allow any dialogue. Don't allow any dialogue. That alarm goes off, there's no dialogue. You just get up. If you want to think about it in the shower, that's fine, because you're already up and moving. But at the point, No dialogue. You do what you need to do. When it's time to meditate, when it's time for your practice, not one more load of laundry. No, don't get one more thing done. No, you don't need a drink of water and a cookie first. You know, go and sit and do your practice. Just do it. To be a advertising slogan. Just do it. So the beginning of evil temptation is inconstancy of mind and insufficient trust in God, right? Insufficient belief in your own nature as the divine. And that's what makes your no weak. That's what makes you unsure. You're like, well, I don't know. I kind of like that. The body, I kind of think myself as a body. So it's sort of like, I want to do that. I want to enjoy that. But it's not. Your nature doesn't want or need. And so you have to hold that firmly. Don't let that trust in the divine nature waver. Don't let those voices take on sentience and win, because you'll be miserable. That's why. Just as a ship without a rudder is tossed about with every storm, so those who are negligent and abandon their good resolutions are tempted in diverse ways. Yeah, it just gets there's no end to the desires that a body mind can produce. There's no end to them. They go on and on and on. And if you're not fighting them, if you're not being aware of them, if you're not going internally, I'm going to mute everyone here real quick. If you don't go in and take care of them, they'll multiply. Thakur says that, trying to get over sin by doing it is like throwing gas on a fire to put it out. It doesn't work. The nature of vice is you need more of it because it doesn't give you what you're looking for. So you need more and more and more and more. It's like coffee. I read this National Geographic article on coffee. They said that, you have your cup of coffee, and if it's your first one that you've ever had, you get that wonderful high from it, that wonderful buzz, so much energy. And ooh. But after you've been taking that coffee for 2 weeks, this article said, you have to have that cup of coffee to attain normal levels of the whatever chemical it releases in the mind. And that's how addiction works. See, Mother really, really tore it up with this world. She's like, yeah, you might enjoy it, but next time you're going to need more to have the same level of enjoyment. And then the third time, you're going to need even more to get the same level of enjoyment. And the fourth and fifth time, you're just going to become more and more of a connoisseur of your vice, which means you're not just going to be happy with a cup of coffee. Now it has to be a latte. And not just a latte, but it has to be a latte that's a flat latte. It has to be of this type of bean from this part of the world, and it has to be roasted to this level. And so it goes on and on and on. The more into vice you go, the more specific the mind and body get about what they want. And the harder and harder it is to find, and the more and more it demands of you. And you poor little slave running around trying to find a coffee shop that has beans from that particular town in China that you like to have coffee from, you're lost. So if you don't have this rudder, and what is your rudder? The constant presence of knowledge of the presence of your divine nature within, the presence of God within you. That's your rudder, your nature. What is your nature? Love, wisdom, and being. How does that act as a rudder? I'm only motivated by love to do things. I'm not motivated by lust. I'm not motivated by hungers. I'm not motivated by desires. I'm motivated by the infinite source of love that's within me. I want to manifest love. I want to manifest wisdom, not silliness, not stupidity. And so that is our rudder, and we live accordingly. We saw that a lot in Brother Lawrence, in the practice of the presence. He says, I would never even pick up a straw from the ground without knowing that it was God's will. And so to have that kind of strength. Those who are negligent and abandon their good resolutions are tempted in diverse ways. Gold is tried by fire. Yes?
So if one doesn't have it, it's a basic question, but it comes up, so I ask. So if one doesn't have the strength, then how does one gain it? How does one?
Well, by knowing that you do have the strength.
Okay.
All strength lies in you. So that's the first thing. It's not that we don't have the strength, it's that we're not using that strength.
Mm.
And you have to go in and discern, why am I not using the strength? Why is it that I really want to do that thing? And that's where you go in with your discernment, because you're going to suffer for it. And so after you've done it and you're suffering, sit there and really feel that suffering and say, mind, make a mark of this, because this is what you get in return for that. So you slowly try and educate the mind, because it's the thing is, a lot of times, like I mentioned, growing up as a Christian, the world was really painted as something that I did want, but you weren't allowed to have. And the thing that I found so beautiful about my Vedanta teaching is that I understood, no, that's not the case at all. There's
Mm.
nothing out there that you want. There's things out there that you're confused about that you think you want, but they never give you what they promise. And discernment is about recognizing that and remembering that. And that will make you stronger. That will make you stronger, because it will demonstrate to you that you suffer because you run after your desires. And you begin to realize quite quickly that they don't give you what you want, and they don't give you enough of what they do give you. So they always leave you hungry, always leave you wanting more. That's why the sages say every desire comes with seeds, right? You fulfill that desire and it leaves seeds behind. Why? Because the next time that you smell pizza, you're going to remember eating pizza. And that's going to be, a big pointer to the fact that you must have pizza right now. You better do it. There's no way around this. You're not strong enough to resist. Go get that money. Yes, get this pizza. All right. So we are strong enough, and Vivekananda really, really states that. All strength lies in you. You are the divine. Thou art that. You are God herself. Uh, Open to that. To the degree that you accept that truth about yourself, to that degree you'll be strong. Yeah. Gold is tried by fire, and the upright person by temptation. Right? So we get stronger because it causes us to realize we can win, we can stand against this. It causes us to do the discernment. So we get a whole library of real information showing us that this is not the way to go. And so, with every bit of discernment, every bit of renunciation that you're successful in, you get momentum for the next, right? And you'll notice that if you look at your life, if you give into a temptation, for the next day or two, you're going to be very susceptible to that temptation. It's going to keep trying to keep you degraded, to keep you falling. Often we do not know what we can do until temptation shows us what we are. Right? So temptation reveals to us our nature. That's why Sri Nisargadatta says all suffering, all pain is an invitation to inquire, to go in and look, because there's an attachment in there somewhere. If there's suffering, there's attachment. Go in, find out what is it that you're attaching to? What is it that you're owning that doesn't belong to you? Find that wrong thinking and discern it, discern your way through it, dismantle it so that it can stop having that kind of control over you. And so, yes, your temptations make you stronger.
So what
Suffering.
if you know it? Sorry.
What's that?
What if you know the attachment and are still unable and you can discern, but still attachment is so strong, like a child's attachment, for example. How
Yeah.
do you get over that?
Lots of patience and endurance, first of all. Lots of grace, because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to be obsessed with that thing. You don't want to think, oh, I have to overcome this. Oh God, I can't overcome this. Oh my God, I've done this so many times. I can't get past this. If you start obsessing over it, that's very unhelpful, because if it's in the mind, you're gonna give into it. You want to free the mind from it at all. So you just don't want to think about it. And so if you've already come to the place of a compulsive behavior that you simply can't control, really at that point, believe it or not, you have to stop worrying about it. Just stop worrying about it. Discern, do your discerning and do your attempts, but don't let it be a big deal. If it happens, confess it to yourself, put awareness on it. Look, I know this is true. I know that this, I've discerned these truths from this thing. Boom, boom, boom. Mother, I'm sorry. I put my eyes on you. And then you use grace to keep your eyes on Mother instead of glancing back at those possibilities. Right. So it's really a matter, it's because your life is not about that. The spiritual life is not about not doing wrong things. Spiritual life is about the adventure of finding out your true nature. It's the adventure of finding the treasure within and the potentials of your freedom. This is what it's about. And so don't let your faults define your spiritual life to be about them. It isn't. They're going to fall off. You're going to win. Thakur said everybody comes home in the end. So you're going to get there. So don't get convinced that you're not strong enough and that you're always going to fall, because you're going to win. And I've done that quite a few times because I've had faults like that. I've had faults like that, and that hurts. I mean, you can get into some really dark spaces inside. I told my therapist, that I had this dark tar with broken glass kind of kneaded into it that would sit in my heart and just cause so much pain and so much desperation for me. And, after reading Thich Nhat Hanh's book, You Are Here, one of the things that has really helped with that is going into that place and standing in the middle of that suffering and just making the announcement loud and clear to myself: love will win here. This pain, this darkness, this suffering, this is temporary. Love will win here. It is inevitable because that is my nature. And that's all. Just going in and making that announcement will bring so much light in there and will help you so much more. So it's really being kind, ensuring yourself that you are there for yourself. I know that sounds like a funny way of talking, but to go in there to yourself and say, I'm here. I'm here for you. Yes, we failed. Yes, we made a mistake. Yes, we did. But I'm here for you. And we're going to be all right. We're going to get through this. I promise. And to hold yourself to that, believe that, know that. So befriend your mind. Don't be an enemy to mind. Strengthen your mind. Give it a pep talk. All right, you fell.
Yeah.
Don't do it again. That's all. Move on.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes. All right. So often we do not know what we can do until temptation shows us what we are. So our troubles, as we search inside for a strengthening, as we search inside for answers, this is how we come to know of our divine nature. This is how we come to know what is true in ourselves. In the early stages of temptation, it is necessary to be watchful, right? Because you've got bad habits. That's why, of course, the Christian scriptures will say Satan is coming back because he thinks he can win and he'll keep tempting you. But really, the problem is that you've been doing the wrong thing so many times that now you're in the habit of doing the wrong thing. And it's not so much that it's difficult to do the right thing. It's difficult to break a bad habit. That's what's difficult. And so our watchfulness is to sit there and watch the mind so that we can see the first impetus of that wrong thinking and snuff it before it actually develops into a state of mind, into a desire, into an arguing voice. So we stay watchful. We guard the very root of the heart so that when we see the first evidence of that spark starting, that's going to grow up and turn into a flame of thinking, into a bowl of a state of mind that we can't see over, that we feel like is all consuming and we have no power against it. If you start fighting at that point, forget it. Forget it. That thing's going to wipe you out, you know. But be watchful. That's why we practice, so that we can get closer and closer and closer to the heart, that we can get more and more accustomed to living in this pure essence of self within us, so that we can get in the habit of expressing that nature and not this nature, not in the mind, which is identified with body and itself. That we don't fight from there. We fight by taking refuge. We fight by taking refuge in the shrine of the heart and enjoying the strength of the moment, the love that is in this moment, by being aware, by relaxing into it, by inviting the presence, by communing with pure love within, and touching that grace, touching that amazing spark of love that is in there. This is how it's done. That will do everything for you. Just find the strength to go there and to sit there, and find the humility to accept the grace that is yours. By knowing there's nothing to be done, you simply have to watch and keep your mind in the presence, and that awareness will carry you through. Because God wants you to win. God wants you to realize. And so he's placed that realization already within you for you to find. That's the fun of this. He's placed that in you to find, and you will find it. So in the early stages of temptation, it's necessary to be watchful, for it is easier to overcome the enemy if he is not allowed to enter into your mind. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Before that impetus of a thought becomes a full thought, and then invites other thoughts, and then invites memories, and then starts visualizing and takes you into a state of being, that don't go there. Start immediately. Get good at watching your inner world. Get good at seeing your mind. And when these habitual cycles start, you'll be able to snuff them out before they have any power, before they have any strength, before they gather all of their friends together. So it's easier to overcome the enemy if he's not allowed to enter into your mind, but is resisted and shut out as soon as he knocks. As someone has said, resist the beginning. The cure applied afterward is too late. Yeah, that's it. Don't let the monster, become a full monster. And get him at the first thought. This is how temptation is. First, we have a thought, followed by strong imaginings, then the pleasure and evil emotions, and finally consent. This is how the enemy gains full admittance, because he was not resisted at the outset. The slower we are to resist, the weaker we daily become, and the stronger the enemy is against us. Yes. So it's true. In a sense, it's true that this watchfulness has to go on. But that's more for living in an aware and conscious life, so that we don't just turn into automatons, just following our daily routine, just boom, 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 dragging on and losing our humanity. Always remember, in every moment, you're absolutely free. Absolutely free. Even to do the wrong things, you're free to do them. Absolutely, you can do them. But they hurt you. Don't get rid of the idea of God being out there just waiting for you to do something wrong so he can poke you in the head. It's like, that is not a God of love at all. God is over on the sidelines with a little cheerleader skirt on and a little blowhorn in his head saying, come on, you can do it. No, not that way. He's got his pom-poms. That's God. God has pom-poms, and he's happy for you and excited for you and believes in you and trusts in you, even if you fall in 10,000 times over and over and over again. God still believes that you can fix it. God still believes that you're worth worth the effort. God will not be the one to stop believing in you. So you should never stop believing in you. This can be and must be done patiently, with tenacity, with faith in grace. We march. We will not be beaten. We will not be overcome. We will not believe the lie that we are a sinner. We are the divine, the image of God itself, placed within us, the gem of life, the gem of love, the gem of wisdom, placed within us. All right. And so he gives us the things to watch out for. First, we have a thought, Actually, usually it's not the thought. The thought is usually not first. Usually it's a feeling, it's a sensation coming in through the senses. Usually it's something in your environment that reminds you or smells like or reminds you of your vice. And something in the air has brought it to you. And then the thought arises. And when the thought arises, if you snuff it at that point, you're all right. But if that thought is allowed to linger, meaning you give it life by identifying with it, oh, that's my thought. That's my thought of my desire for my pleasure, right? The my is what gives it sentience and power. You are sharing your sense of self with this insentient thought whose nature is death. It would have risen, come into view, and gone away had you not been identified with it. So you get some impetus, some sensual input that reminds you of a vice or in there. The thought of the vice comes up. If you don't stop it, then it brings up the memories of the times you've engaged in that vice, but it only brings up the good memories. If you're not discerning, if you're not in the habit of discerning and paying attention to the inside, it will just come up and keep presenting how wonderful that last experience was. The last time you drunk yourself under the table, it will just show you the part when you were with your friends and you were all laughing and everything was funny and light and great and crazy. It won't bring up the following morning. It won't bring up how you almost lost your job. It won't bring up how the distress that is causing in the family. It won't bring all that stuff up. It'll just bring the fun part up. And so this is why we have to discern. It'll bring the fun part up. It'll bring the memories up. It'll bring the longing up. And if you've gotten that far into it, you're going to give in. You're going to acquiesce to that weakness. And so cut it off at the very beginning, And how do you cut it off? Not through resistance. You can't fight it. What you do is you transcend it. You put your mind in a different place. You put your mind on beautiful things. You put your mind on God. You put your mind on love. You sit down and sing a song. You go out in the garden immediately and look for a flower to pick for mother. Go quickly to the kitchen and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and put it in a bag and go outside and find someone to give it to. Take a $5 bill and get out there and look for homeless people. Do service, do compassion, do caring. Call up a good friend and tell them that you care about them and that they're a wonderful strength to you in your life. This is how we overcome those things. We train our mind to act out its nature. We don't go pushing against the ignorance. We educate the ignorance. We educate ourselves through discernment and through awareness. And that awareness itself will correct it over time, right? That awareness is God, the presence of the divine within you. So we practice awareness and we inspire ourselves by remembering our nature and the promises of what we are. And we keep looking and we keep trying. And we don't worry about the stuff that's holding us back. We keep our mind on God and the promise of success, that he will never fail, that he will never stop believing, he will never stop hoping. And if you can get yourself to apologize, even though you don't believe your apology, even though you don't believe in your ability to overcome, Mother will. Mother will not stop believing. All right.